Imagine standing at the edge of the world. Not the world you know, a different one. White, endless, crushing. It's December 1914, and the ship Endurance noses into the Weddell Sea like a wooden coffin searching for a grave. The men on board feel it. They don't say it yet, but they feel it. And the man leading them?
Sir Ernest Shackleton, broad-shouldered, dead-set eyes, a leader forged by failure and ego in equal measure, is about to gamble 28 human lives against the most merciless force on Earth, Antarctica.
Europe is exploding into World War I. Millions marching toward death, but Shackleton wants a different kind of glory. He names the ship Endurance because that's all he has to offer his crew.
His idea is beyond reckless. Cross the entire Antarctic continent on foot, 1,500 miles, something no human has ever accomplished. The crew is a mismatched tribe hand-picked for extremes. Tough whalers from Norway, weather-beaten British sailors, a quiet physicist, a fatalistic surgeon, a photographer named Frank Hurley, and somewhere below deck, a stowaway hiding between crates, hoping to earn a place. But the man who matters most, the one who will ignite the future mutiny, is a wiry, brilliant, temperamental carpenter.
Sharp tongue, sharp mind, hates authority, hates Shackleton more. And he will become the spark that almost kills everyone. By January 1915, the ship slows, then stops. The Weddell Sea closes around the hull like a vice. Ice doesn't just freeze, it moves, it swallows, it crushes. The crew hears groans from the timbers, like the ship is crying. It lasts nearly 10 months. At first, the men joke. They play football on the ice. They take photos. But then, the pressure builds. The ice rises and falls like a beast breathing under a blanket. The hull bends. The deck trembles. The sails tear themselves apart. On October 27, 1915, the noise changes. Not groaning, not cracking, something worse. A scream, wood shrieking like metal. Shackleton storms onto the ice and sees it. The hull is being squeezed upward, lifted like a toy by forces no human can fight. He orders the men off the ship. They take tents, food, the sled dogs, scientific equipment, rifles, and the 3 lifeboats, James Caird, Dudley Docker, Stancomb Wills. The temperature is minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Frost forms inside their lungs when they breathe. Behind them, the Endurance explodes inward. Planks burst. The stern twists, and the Weddell Sea begins pulling her down. The crew watches their home, their warmth, their safety, their only link to civilization vanish beneath black ice water. For a moment, no one speaks. Then Shackleton says the line history remembers: ship and stores gone. But that's not what he really thought. He knew the truth. They were now the furthest south any human had ever been stranded. They march for days through pressure ridges, dragging 800-pound sledges, hearts pounding, coughing blood from the cold. They find a stretch of flat ice and set up a camp. They call it Ocean Camp because everything beneath their feet is ocean, moving, drifting, breaking. Men sleep 3 to a tent, wrapped in frozen blankets that crack when bent. Their food, seal fat, a dwindling pile of biscuits, the occasional penguin, and the dogs, whom they will eventually eat. The first fractures appear, not in the ice, but in the group. Sailors whisper. Scientists argue. McNish begins writing in his journal, "We are drifting into death." Shackleton knows McNish is dangerous. Brilliant, yes, but bitter, and resentment spreads like frostbite. By January 1916, the ice beneath Ocean Camp begins breaking apart beneath storms. The floes tilt, cracks open under the tents. The dogs whine at night. They move again. They drag everything across knife-edged ridges to a new floe. This one is no better. Here, starvation becomes real. Men count calories like prisoners. They eat blubber, then bones, then scraps of scraps. One man cuts his boots apart and eats the leather. Frank Wild, second in command, tries to keep discipline. He keeps the men marching in circles around camp every morning to stop their morale from collapsing. McNish begins refusing orders, claiming Shackleton's authority is void because the ship is gone. In any other expedition, this would mean execution for mutiny. But Shackleton, desperate to keep the crew from imploding, moving, lets it slide. This is a mistake. On April 9th, 1916, a violent storm smashes Patience Camp apart. The floe splits in half. Half the men fall into the freezing sea before scrambling up the other side. If even one of them had slipped into a pressure crack, they'd be crushed into bone dust. 3 lifeboats, 28 men. None have slept properly in months. Most are frostbitten, some already close to death. And the sea ahead, the Drake Passage, is the most violent stretch of ocean on Earth. They launch into waves taller than buildings. The boats fill with icy water faster than they can bail it out. Men scream for help. Men vomit from the cold. Men pray. And somewhere in the chaos, the lines of command blur. McNish shouts that Shackleton is killing them. Vincent, the fireman, threatens a sailor who tries to steer. Wild tries to hold the group together as panic spreads. They row for 6 days through storms that should have sunk ships 10 times their size. 6 days of snow stinging like knives. 6 days of waves smashing into faces already swollen with frostbite. 6 days of wet boots turning feet black, their first solid ground in 497 days. Many weep when their feet touch rock. And the mutiny that nearly destroyed Shackleton's legend has not yet begun. Waves slam the shore as 28 broken men drag their lifeboats onto the black stones of Elephant Island, a place so savage that even penguins avoid it when they can. They collapse. Some laugh hysterically. Some cry without sound. Some just stare, catatonic, at the rising cliffs. They've survived the most violent ocean crossing on Earth, but now the real test begins. Because no ship has ever rescued anyone from Elephant Island. No trade route passes by. No fisherman, no whaler, no soul of any kind has reason to come here. They might as well be stranded on the moon. The moment they stop moving, their bodies seize. Lips split open in the cold, fingers blackened like burnt matches, legs swollen with frostbite, clothes stiff as armor, soaked with salt water, guts twisted from eating almost nothing but seal fat. The youngest among them, Percy Blackborough, the hidden stowaway, can barely walk. His toes are already dead. He hides the smell of rot as long as he can. Shackleton looks at his men and makes a decision that will haunt him forever. We cannot all stay here. I must go for help. He chooses his crew for the rescue attempt. Frank Worsley, the genius navigator. Tom Crean, unbreakable Irishman. John Vincent, powerful but unstable. Timothy McCarthy, steady as stone. And the man who hates him most, Harry McNish. Shackleton needs McNish. Only he can rebuild the James Caird into something that might survive the voyage. McNish agrees, but not out of loyalty. He knows if Shackleton dies at sea, McNish becomes the smartest man left in camp, the man who could lead or take over. For 2 weeks, they reinforce the boat with improvised decking and canvas roofs. McNish works like a demon, muttering curses under his breath. They set off on April 24th, 1916, into the freezing, monstrous Southern Ocean. Back on Elephant Island, 22 men remain under the command of Frank Wild. This is where everything falls apart. The first storm hits the day after Shackleton leaves. Wind howls at 80 miles per hour. Snow blankets everything. Men stumble blind around camp, feeling for rocks, for ropes, for each other. They flip the 2 remaining boats upside down and use them as roofs for a crude hut. The walls are built from rocks, ice, sealskins. It's 6 feet tall, 20 feet long, and smells like smoke, blubber, sweat, sickness, and something else, despair. They call it the Snuggery, a joke so bitter no one laughs.
Inside, 22 men breathe the same rotten air. The floor is mud. The roof drips constantly. The furnace burns seal fat, filling the room with oily smoke. Everything, clothes, blankets, skin, is soaked and greasy. Men cough all night. Men scream in their sleep. Men wake up believing they're suffocating. And in the dark corners, the first whispers of mutiny begin. The Loyalists cluster around Frank Wild, old sailors, steady men, People who believe Shackleton will return because believing otherwise means losing their minds. The others gravitate toward Harry McNish, Ernest Holness, and John Vincent. McNish is consumed with bitterness. He saved the James Caird. He rebuilt the boat that could save Shackleton. Yet, Shackleton barely thanked him. Holness backs him, angry, exhausted, hungry. Vincent is the muscle, a walking storm cloud with a temper like a lit fuse. There are whispers. Wilde hears the murmurs. He keeps the men working constantly, hunting, hauling rocks, repairing the hut, because idle hands, out here, become murderous ones. But resentment grows like mold. The men weaken. Their gums turn purple, teeth loosen, fingers lose feeling. Blackboar, the stowaway, can no longer stand. His toes are black. He hides the worst from Wilde, but the smell gives him away. The surgeon, Macklin, examines him. Gangrene. They tie him down. They heat a pocket knife over a seal oil flame. No anesthesia, no morphine left. In that freezing hut, they amputate his toes while he screams into a rag. That night, Holness mutters, "This is no rescue. This is a grave." McNish begins refusing orders entirely. "I'm a carpenter," he says. He claims Shackleton has no authority anymore. The ship is gone, so the contract is void. Legally, he's right. Psychologically, he's detonating a bomb. Men begin hoarding scraps of food. They circle around the blubber pot like wolves. Some refuse to share. Others steal at night. Wilde catches two sailors fighting over a piece of burnt fat the size of a coin. Then it gets worse. McNish tells several men that Wilde is secretly keeping the best meat for his favorites. Wilde denies it, but hunger makes men believe anything. One morning, Wilde discovers McNish sawing the best of the remaining lifeboats in half. "Making a better floor for the hut," he says casually. Wilde loses his mind. "Stop it," he shouts. McNish shouts back. "There is no escape. He's dead. We all know it." The men watch, breath steaming, hands twitching near tools and knives. This is the moment things tilt. If Wilde strikes him, if McNish strikes first, the camp will erupt into violence. Finally, Wilde walks away, but everyone knows the line has been crossed. July 8, 1916. A blizzard traps the men inside the snuggery for 48 straight hours. No fresh meat, no movement. The smell is unbearable. Vincent snaps. He pulls a Webley revolver from his coat, cocks it, and points it at Frank Wilde's chest. "If you ration food again, I'll take over." The hut goes dead silent. The only sound is the wind screaming through the cracks. Wilde doesn't flinch. "Go ahead," he says quietly. Vincent hesitates, breath shaking, finger tightening. Then he lowers the gun. But the damage is done. From that night on, men take turns guarding the food stores. They sleep in shifts. Conversations stop when certain men enter the hut, and a literal line is drawn in the snow between the factions. The mutiny is no longer whisper, it is fact. And if Shackleton does not return soon, men will kill each other. The days drag on. Weeks become months. Elephant Island doesn't change. It doesn't care. The wind screams like a living beast. The cliffs groan under the ice. The ocean beats its fists against the shore in endless fury. And inside the snuggery, the men shrink further into themselves. Every face is pale, every eye hollow. Every hand shakes. Every breath smells like death. Frank Wilde knows the truth. If Shackleton does not return, the mutiny will escalate. Men will do things that cannot be undone. Night comes fast in the Antarctic winter. The sun barely rises, leaving the camp in a perpetual gray twilight. McNish prowls the hut like a predator. He is still bitter, still convinced that the rescue is impossible. Holness and Vincent follow him silently, ready for chaos. Whispers of murdering the weakest, of hoarding every scrap, of abandoning the ill. They are no longer whispers. They are plans. One night, Blackborough dreams of warmth, of bread, of the smell of earth, of normal life. He wakes to the icy ceiling of the snuggery and the moan of a blizzard. His toes scream in frostbite agony. A piece of his mind cracks. He begins talking to shadows. The men around him barely notice. Their own ghosts walk beside them. Frank Wilde works them mercilessly, but purpose keeps them alive. Daily penguin hunts, seal blubber rendered over open flames, repairs to the snuggery that no one asked for, stories about Shackleton to remind them of the world beyond. They ration everything. Every meal is calculated. Every scrap of clothing saved. Every drop of warmth fought for. Some nights, Wilde hears knives scraping against tables. Some nights, he sees the faint glint of revolvers. Some nights, he dreams of firing first. Outside, the ice is merciless. Snow drifts higher than men, wind that cuts like knives, jagged cliffs that appear alive. Men stumble in the dark. They fall on rocks. They break their legs. They break their spirits. Frostbite is a slow assassin. Gangrene eats at their flesh. Fingers, toes, ears, noses. Blackborough's toes are gone. He hides it with rags and silence. One man, Alexander Kerr, loses an eye in a seal hunting accident. He refuses to cry. No one can see his suffering through the constant smoke and shadows of the snuggery. By September, 4 months after Shackleton's departure, the camp is at a breaking point. The factions are obvious now. Loyalists, the ones still clinging to hope, still following Frank Wilde. Mutineers, McNish, Holness, Vincent, and a few others, waiting for chaos, planning their escape or takeover. A fight over a seal steak almost turns deadly. Men draw knives, fists fly, teeth bite. The hut shakes with rage and desperation, but no one fires the revolver. Every day is a war, not with nature. Nature has already won, but with humanity itself. Then, on August 30, 1916, almost 4 months after Shackleton left, the impossible happens. A ship appears on the horizon. The men, ghosts in rags and blackened skin, stumble out of the snuggery. They are shaking, screaming, crying. Some collapse in the snow. Some run toward the water, arms outstretched, laughing and crying at the same time. It is the Yelcho, a small Chilean tug sent by Shackleton after 3 failed rescue attempts. Shackleton himself stands on the bow, scanning the beach with binoculars. He shouts their names as he spots them. And in that moment, every fear, every mutiny, every whispered plot dissolves. Every man, exhausted, frostbitten, starving, is saved. Every man alive. They return to civilization. And here is the cruelest twist. The mutiny, the revolver, the whispered plots, all of it is erased from the official report. McNish, the bitter carpenter who saved Shackleton's life, is denied the Polar Medal. Vincent and Holness are quietly discharged. But the diaries, the letters, the private confessions tell the truth. The men were ready to kill each other. The men clawed at survival, fought each other, argued, whispered darkly. And yet, they survived. Because of ingenuity, because of loyalty, because of endurance. McNish dies poor and forgotten in New Zealand, but his cat, Mrs. Chippy, is buried with full honors. Blackborough survives, but carries scars that will never heal. Shackleton himself, who looks like a hero in
I've
the
seen
history
men at
books,
their best
privately admits,
and at their worst.
Frank Wilde returns home, haunted but alive. The other men rebuild their lives, some never speaking of the ordeal. And the world remains largely ignorant of the fragility of humanity in extreme isolation. If this story just shook you to your core and made you feel the weight of survival and the darkness of human nature, do 3 things right now. Smash that like button so more people learn the real story. Drop the word mutiny in the comments so I know you made it to the end. Subscribe and hit the bell because next week we're going somewhere even colder, darker, and more unforgiving.